Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And me.
And you're watching episode 122 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What are we doing today, Victoria?
We're going to review, I was going to say Flash Flood Part 1. We're going to review the OAC episode of the month, Swept Away Part 1, and then Flash Flood from album 15.
Correct. So, no news, since we're recording this minutes after the previous episode. So, Swept Away Part 1, episode 818, written by Nathan Hubler, did an excellent job. What happens in Swept Away Part 1, Victoria?
It spoils the entirety of album 63, Devin.
Yeah, Penny and Wooten are just...
There.
Here. They're just here.
And they're already married.
So they're just
back from their honeymoon.
Back, and there's no acknowledgments of the clear issues here, given how album 63 begins. This is just happening, I guess. Timeline confusion be darned.
It's the ultimate, middle finger to Odyssey fans.
And to
basically.
Us in particular.
Yeah,
us
to you and me, specifically.
Nathan Hubler, I expected better of you over everyone else.
I'm thinking,
you of all people.
Couldn't they have just moved some episodes around, OAC episodes, so other ones came before, and this came later in the year, so, it didn't ruin everything in life, but no, it didn't do that.
Who knows? So, what happens, Victoria?
Okay, so there's a lot of flooding going around the Odyssey area, and a lot of places are, flooding, like Connellsville and stuff. And we find out that Wayakatalaniti, which is the name that Odyssey originally had, the dam that they built or whatever to contain all the water that would flood every year is where Trickle Lake comes from. So,
surprise!
That's the thing. Devin got so excited about that. So we know the origins of Trickle Lake now.
Surprise!
He's very happy about that.
Blew my mind like no else.
It makes sense, though. It's not one of those things where...
It does make sense.
Where they just do something and you're like, that doesn't make sense. And they're like, yes, it does. Shut up. Because we say it does.
It makes so much sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
That, you know what? Do you know how much sense it makes, Victoria? This was my very last note, but I'm going to jump to it right now.
Okay.
Mrs. Kramer's like, I've never seen Odyssey flood before. It's not going to happen. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Odyssey did flood once before that we know about. It wasn't until almost the end of the episode that I remembered that at least once since its founding, Abel McAllister failed to inform the town it was coming and called on in class. Trent's great-great-grandfather, as a young adult, he described it as the Wild West, so late 1800s. Trent said the dam had crumbled and the flood wiped out the town. Nobody died, so I assume the flood wasn't too terrible, and we know that Wits End survived, at least as far as the structure goes, because Wits End had already existed at that point. But he doesn't just say a flood came, he says the dam broke, and then the town flooded. The dam had crumbled, is what he said. In no other episode up until now have we heard any mention of a dam anywhere near Odyssey except for in Called On in Class, which makes me wonder if they already knew that Trickle Lake had a dam that, if broken, would flood the town.
It's honestly probably one of those things, kind of like how they know Wit's story.
Exactly, like it was written out in advance. That's why I wonder, was this planned out in advance, or did they...
It might have been. You know what it's kind of like? It's like when people play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's that version where you don't know what your own character is like, and they have the character cards for you, the Game Master does, and then you have to write down your traits as you play and you find things out.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. Actually, I guess that's what all world building's like. Never mind.
Yes, I was wondering why you went with that. That was a
terrible analogy.
I was wondering why you went with that very specific example. But no, it blew my mind because I was like, that... They mentioned the dam way back when, and I'd never picked up on it before. But yeah, so, okay, we start out Ted Humphries, and also shout out to Richland.
I was so worried that the entire episode was just going to be news reports, and it was going to be like a two-parter of news reports, and I was thinking, I'm not going to like this at all, which is why it took me forever to finish the episode.
I really like all of the plot threads going on here. So it's
And I thought it'd be like OT Action News, and I don't like OT Action News, so I was really glad it wasn't.
Yeah, it was so fascinating connecting Trickle Land to the Trickle Lake. Trickle Lake to the McAllister's original irrigation of the land. My eyes skipped across lines there. So yeah, they didn't just irrigate the waters away, but they actually built the dam, which means that Trickle Lake is a man-made lake. It makes so much sense, but it's crazy that we never knew that before. Also, they mentioned Margaret Fay, Eugene does, when he talks about retrofitting the dam. And I realized, I was like, that's crazy that they had the same dam from the original McAllisters all the way up until they refitted it. And then I realized, oh wait, no, they didn't, because I remembered that flood happened, called on in class. He said the dam crumbled. So the original dam crumbled in the late 1800s, and then they rebuilt the dam with outlet valves, which were then later retrofitted electronically when Eugene did it under that commission that Margaret did.
And I'm just over here being mean, and I'm like, but this is post-hiatus Odyssey. Things that they add geographically aren't supposed to make this much sense. What is this?
It was great. Millie Shanks is still alive. So
yeah, that's really nice to know. And
Katrina was visiting her.
Not only is Millie being visited by Katrina, she's also being visited by Buck. I want to know if this is the first time she's met Buck before.
And also, Spencer Hicks appeared. He has only before ever appeared in Mystery of the Clock Tower Parts 1 and 2. That was cool. And he was actually like a significant character in the episode too. So Spencer Hicks was here.
Lurking out Eugene's car. He's always stalking Eugene in some way or another whenever he appears.
He kicked a door down, which is cool. Mayor Big Kicks Hicks. He's also, I found out, he's played by Dave Fennoy, which is real cool, who's a moderately famous voice actor. Okay. So I get that might be why he hasn't been on many episodes.
Probably.
But yeah, so that was cool that he was there. Mrs. Kramer is sure being stingy. I was like, I wonder if she isn't later going to become a victim of the flood and then see the error of her ways after. Because she's like, no, I'm not going to give you any money. And I was like, boy, I sure wonder if she's later going to need money from people after she doesn't help them.
I wonder what, if they did like a tornado type thing with Miss Kramer, how much that would change her character. Maybe not at all. It probably wouldn't change her character at all. Never mind.
Yeah, as I was saying that, I was like, it does sound very much like Tornado, as I described that.
But,
which we're going to be doing with part 2.
Was like, can't we just leave her here and let her drown?
Toria.
She's so horrible.
It's like, that was one of the discussion questions, is like, if you were dealing with Mrs. Kramer, or situations like that, how long would you go and like trying to help someone, or would you just like leave them behind? In what situations would it be better to leave them or help them? I was like, well, we know where Victoria stands.
She refused to leave, though. We know she has dogs now, so that's like a new
Yes, that was interesting. Their names are
so
Optimist
she has cats and dogs.
Sorry?
So she has cats and dogs, then.
No, that's true. I forgot.
Yeah.
You were correct.
She's one of those people.
Here's where I muse over Odyssey geography now. So, Eugene mentions, because it's always been interesting, because we have Trickle Lake, of course, which is a major location in Odyssey, but we also one mention each of Trickle Creek and Trickle River. So, Eugene mentions that water should be outflowing from the dam into the creek, which made me wonder, is this Trickle Creek? Eugene said that the retrofitting was a few years ago, sometime during Margaret Fay's mayorship, which puts it at maximum between albums 29 and 52. But back in album 7, in One Bad Apple, we learned that Tom's farm is irrigated by a creek running off of Trickle Lake. We also hear of Trickle Creek from Lucy, so that we know it's a creek, but we don't know if that's Trickle Creek, but we hear of Trickle Creek proper from Lucy in Connie Goes to Camp, but we don't know if that's a creek that runs into the lake or out of the lake. Whit also mentions in One Bad Apple that there are several inflowing sources to the lake, and that he tested all of them when he was looking for the pesticide.
Edge spider.
Yeah, the arsenic. Given all of these facts, I would assume that the original dam had a single, steady, unmalleable outflow where they couldn't control the rate of the valves. Given that the lake has constant input, not just from melting snow or precipitation directly, there's constant water flowing into it, so it needs to have water flowing out of it. Otherwise, we just overflow the dam. And then later, they just retrofitted electronic control systems to the existing outflow system. So this outflow is the creek that runs into Tom's farm. It's probably not Trickle Creek. Here's where things get complicated. Probably not Trickle Creek, given that Trickle Creek isn't very far out of town. Sorry. So it's probably not Trickle Creek because we know that the creek flowing out of the lake is what I mean, isn't very far out of town. People can get there easily and quickly because it's at Tom's farm. But Ned says to Whit in Camp Whatnot Part 1 in Album 2 that Camp Whatnot is very far out and that it's a decent drive to get out there, and Lucy was able to walk to Trickle Creek from the camp without getting caught, so it didn't take a super long time. So Trickle Creek is way out from town. Trickle Lake is pretty far from town. That's what I meant, Trickle Lake and Tom's farm both. So the camp is further from Odyssey than the lake, and the outflowing creek heads towards the town because it has to run through Tom's land. So Trickle Creek isn't the outflow creek. I suppose the camp could be way out from town in a different direction from the lake, and the creek flows towards town and past it, then off and away from the and then towards the camp. But that seems unlikely because I'm pretty sure the camp is more like upwards and Odyssey is in a valley, and creeks are usually quite a small water flow, so I can't think of if I'm definitely right about Camp One not being more up in the mountains, but I'm pretty sure it is, and the creek can't flow uphill, so Trickle Creek is almost certainly an affluent water source for the lake. There's also the question of Trickle River, which is, I believe, where Grady's Sunday school class went in Only by His Grace, and it's wide and strong enough for tubing, but it doesn't seem like there's enough info about it to infer anything about that. So that's what I figured out about that. From Accidental Dilemma, it's suggested that Trickle Lake is kind of southish of Odyssey because the helicopter flew southwest from over Trickle Lake, which was in a direction which would not take it back over the town. So we're piecing things together, Victoria. It's coming together. That helps.
So you have like a conspiracy board in your room right now?
No, it's just on my desktop in sticky notes.
Oh, okay.
I haven't started actually putting pen to paper, but between this and what I gleaned from Tornado when I was reviewing that, because we're going to be doing that with part 2 of Swept Away, I figured
Spoilers.
Yeah, I said that a couple minutes ago. I was like, I know what direction Connellsville roughly is in now from Odyssey and Trickle Lake, and like we have a better idea of like Camp Whatnot compared to Trickle Lake and stuff like that, because it should be in roughly the same direction because the water sources, because Trickle River should be connected to Trickle Lake, especially given that Trickle Lake is man-made, so the river would have had been named after the lake. So, yeah, it's coming together. So, sorry that was long and rambly, but yeah, I thought about all the geography stuff, and I'm pretty sure that's how it should work. So, Trickle Creek flows from Camp Whatnot into Trickle Lake, and then the creek flowing out of Trickle Lake flows to Tom's farm and irrigates it, and Edgebiter was between the lake and Tom's farm, is what I've concluded. So, Wooten's house is done. So, yeah, they're post-honeymoon. This is all taking place past...
Wooten likes the house.
36, I guess, yeah. It sounds nice. It's funny, I picked Flash Flood to go with this episode based solely on the title Swept Away. I didn't even know if this episode was about flood or rain or Noah's Ark or present day or was an Odyssey.
I kept on thinking of Flashed Away, and I still do.
Yeah, I know. But man, it was a good pick to put Flash Flood with this episode. Penny and Connie said that they were checking up on Connie's neighbors, but it sounds like they were on Sycamore since it sounded like they were next to Mrs. Kramer's house. Because she's like, I'm going to go check on Mrs. Kramer again. So that's kind of odd. I don't know. Maybe she meant before.
Well, where does June live?
We don't know. It would be pretty crowded if she also lived on Sycamore.
Everyone lives on Sycamore, Devon.
I know. They even said it by name in Tornado. They're like, Brian Dern was like, the Sycamore area of town got hit the hardest with homes and businesses like the Electric Palace.
And then they're like, but that's literally everyone.
Yeah, that's the whole town. I really, really love how much it must be burning Mrs. Kramer to know that Penny and Wooten laughed for an hour at her insults at them. That's like nothing else. That must just destroy her inside. To hear Penny say, like, when you called Wooten or whatever it was, we laughed for an hour over that. And Mrs. Kramer's like...
Her eyes twitching.
Yeah. Calcium deficiency.
I just realized, do you think that Odyssey is a lot like Vancouver in that Vancouver has streets that, like, go over the entirety of Vancouver? They're so big. Do you think Sycamore Street's just
the
one
entire
big winding street
it's a big
that
spiral.
goes through all of Odyssey?
It's kind of like, you know how France is set up like concentric circles with spokes going through it?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, except instead of concentric circles, Sycamore is a big spiral, and then there's like spokes through it, so you can get around. But the point is, Sycamore Street is everywhere.
It's everyone.
Well,
Everyone's
the thing is,
a neighbor.
It's not just a street; it is a neighborhood. It's an area of town because we know some of the people live on Sycamore Street, some live on Sycamore Lane. So they're not all on the same street, but they're all in the same neighborhood. So it would be like at home. Not that everyone lives on 10th Avenue, but that everyone lives in Kinnear.
Do you think, like, the streets are different, but they all have the same names? Like, it's, you know, when you can, like, name a street or something like that? Do you think it's, like, Sycamore Street, Sycamore Lane,
Sycamore Avenue, Sycamore Roundabout,
and then, like, something in brackets so you don't say it out loud, street, and then, like, Sycamore dash Lane, or...
Yeah. Yeah,
Sycamore, all capital letters.
Well, I think that's how neighborhoods sometimes work like that. It's like the same name, but it's different street types depending on how it goes together. I don't know. I imagine it's more like Kinnaird would be like how you picture it, like all these kind of streets that are beside each other is the idea.
Okay.
Would be like the neighborhood instead of that, 10th Avenue or 11th Avenue or whatever. Speaking of city designs... The worst design I've ever heard of in my entire life is that you would have to cut power to the entire city just to reboot the computer for the dam.
Yeah.
I like how Eugene at least justified it, how instead of thinking about practicality, they were focusing on the security aspect of it, and it was designed that way to prevent anyone from messing with the computer because they'd need access to the substation. But the fact that you designed it so you have to turn off the power for the entire city just to reboot this one computer.
Well, all those people on life support have
I've heard of the hospital. I mean, oh my goodness, what a terrible design.
What happens when people are on life support and the power goes out across town?
Well, hospitals have backup generators, Victoria.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Just like UBC is the same thing, all their computer systems. When the power goes out at my house, UBC still has all their power because they all have backup generators.
That's good.
What you have is, and actually Whit talked about this in When One Door Closes. It's called a UPS, uninterruptible power supply, which is like a backup generator that runs so that if the power cuts out, it will go in with no break in the middle, so there's no loss of power at all, and it runs continuously. They didn't have that in Afghanistan, which is why the Imagination Station was having problems. Like Achievement Hunter, that's how I know about it. They've talked about it before.
Hey.
All their systems run on UPS so that if there's a power outage, they don't lose all their game capture.
Hey, no, it would make it easier for them not to need like that sustainable power source if they had
independent power grid based on coal.
If they had like hand pumps where you could just like crank it. And
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
Like, and it had like this crazy name that sounds like a gaming console, like an Edulink. Sounds like.
Does that sound like a console to you, Victoria?
A weird Nintendo character with blonde hair that just finished grad school, educated Edulink, and like.
That was awful.
Thank you.
That was reprehensible, Victoria.
It was better than push the red button.
As I was writing these notes, I was on the bus, and it was like raining, or no, it wasn't raining time, but there was, in the episode, there's like the apocalyptic sounds of like thunder and lightning, and there's all these cars swerving and trying to get out of town, and as I'm listening to this, half a dozen cop cars, spaced apart by like 60 seconds each, just kept on coming by, flying by, sirens blazing in the opposite direction, and it kept on feeling like it was part of the episode, like it fit into the sound design so well.
And then you felt like the fugitive, and you felt like they were watching you.
It felt like a very augmented experience, because I'm like listening to the episode, and there's like actually the sound like around me, and visually it's going around. Like, I actually thought it was the episode at first, and I was like, oh, those are real cop cars, real sirens.
And then you realize that they were following you, and you're like, oh, I should pull over.
Yeah, well, I was on the bus, so.
I know. Let me tell a joke, Devin.
Yeah, so the plots in this episode, we end with Penny and Connie are trapped in
I didn't expect that drama. I will admit. I was like, oh, this is actually interesting.
Yeah, they actually had good justifications for why they're trapped and why they can't get out or contact anyone else. And it's like, this is actually a tense moment. Like, the entire town is about to be potentially washed away.
June's wedding dress is one of the things they say.
I know.
Connie wants to get married in it, and I was like, that's sweet, but good luck. Because we all know you're not getting married.
I'm so there's mean, that. There's true. Wooten and Wit. Wooten Witten. They are...
Witten.
You know, they're going around and they're helping people and working with Convoy of Hope, and then there's Eugene and Mayor Hicks, and they're trying to fix the dam, so we have these different storylines going on. I really like this episode.
Convoy of Hope, I assume, is the charity of the month.
Yes. So, like, it was a very dramatic episode. I really feel like the stakes are very high here.
I really liked how dramatic it was at the ending. It kind of reminded me of... I was going to say Broken Window because a window breaks in the episode.
Stormy Weather?
That's not what it's called. What?
Stormy Weather?
Yes, Stormy Weather.
Yeah, the episode reminded me very much of Flash Flood and Tornado both. Like, it just I realized I really like stormy weather apocalyptic episodes set in Odyssey.
But I don't like movies like that.
And stormy weather,
I don't like
too.
Disaster movies.
I like disaster movies.
How dare you? Have you seen 2012?
No, I have not.
Are you going to watch 2012?
I mean, at this point in 2017, it seems statistically unlikely at this point I'll get around to it.
Have you seen Tornado?
I've not, no.
It's not a very good movie.
Anyways, back to the episode. I really, really like this. I'm very excited for part 2. So the video documentary, very short, it was the opposite of what the basketball one was last time, which is great. It was, instead of having nothing about the charity and it's just Bob losing a basketball to 2-year-olds, it was basically exclusively video from Convoy of Hope talking about what they do. It showed some of the work they've done. It showed a bunch of clips of celebrities talking about it and endorsing it, that are clips taken from different shows and news broadcasts. They had the Jonas Brothers, Stephen Colbert, Zendaya, and a whole bunch of people. And it was like, hey, this is actually cool. I know these and these people. And they were talking about oh yeah,
the Jonas Brothers?
This and this for... Well, I know who they are. They're big names,
okay.
You know what I mean?
So for Jonas Brothers, it was, I know these people, and for Stephen Colbert, it's I like these people.
And Zendaya, best character in Spider-Man Homecoming. So
was she Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna say Michelle, because some people might not have seen it yet.
So that was cool. It was really cool. And so they talked about the cleanup work they did in Louisiana during the crazy flooding. I think it was last year that they had all that flooding. And the Convoy of Hope, I wrote Hand of Hope here. Talking about the two of the things got them very confused in my mind. Convoy of Hope, not the live show in November, does basically the whole episode. There's barely any Bob in it. I liked the fact that it focused on the charity. It was good to get to hear about them. The web adventure had, because we didn't get to hear from all of the characters in Odyssey, we didn't get to hear what the Parkers were doing during the flood.
Why would we want to?
And so the web quest filled in this for us by having Victoria fill it in for us with a Mad Lib story.
You want me to do a story about the Parker family?
So before...
That's so dumb, though. That's hey, we know that Mitch is maybe gonna join the FBI, but what are the Washingtons doing today?
Hey, everyone in Odyssey is being affected by the flood. So the web quest has a Mad Lib story about the Parkers escaping the flood, and before we started recording, I got Victoria, without really knowing what she was doing,
to do. Oh my gosh.
to give me some words. So I'm going to read that now so we can see.
That's so dumb. It's hey, Brexit's happening. Let's do a Mad Lib about what Mitch is doing today. It's so stupid.
Shh. Soaking wet, David Parker opened the front door and stepped into his living room. Heavy rain and wind whistled hatefully until he shut the door behind him. David could see his wife running on the phone. "All right, Mama, please be careful. We'll see you in Dogville in a few hours." After Ava said goodbye, she turned to find her husband dripping water all over her nice clean rain. "Oh, David, you're drenched." "I couldn't find my umbrella. Is your mother okay?" She's fine, Ava replied. Mama's getting a ride out of town with her neighbor, Mrs. McCready. David pulled out an animal, registered trademark of Jim Henson.
Yeah, the Muppets.
Pulled out an animal and wiped the rain off his glasses. We'd better get
How
going
dare
too.
He?
We'd better get going too, he said. The car is in the driveway with a full tank of lemonade. Have you seen our children today? The words were barely out of his mouth when Olivia came mooing down the stairs, followed closely by her brother. She was very upset.
This sounds like a Parker family
this is
episode.
Perfect. Matthew says he's taking his electronic flower with us. I have to, he insisted. It's my coolest invention ever. If our moon gets washed away in a flood, I'll never see it again. Besides, it might come in handy, unlike your precious toothbrush collection. Olivia crossed her feet defiantly. Well, if you get to take
If the moon gets washed away, if the moon gets washed away, there won't be a tide anymore.
Well, if you get to take your stuff, I get to take mine. David needed to end this before it turned into World War III. Victoria coming up with the least creative number in that circumstance. Actually, we're not taking either of them. Kids, we may come across superheroes who need a ride, and their safety is more important than our possessions, so we're only taking things that are absolutely essential. Olivia apologized for being crappy. Ava noticed Matthew holding a really crappy box and asked what was inside. I packed a first aid kit, he replied. It's got bandages, aspirin, antiseptic, and most importantly, Gravity Falls fans.
You can tell when I stopped trying.
Good thinking.
Save the Gravity Falls fans.
Good thinking, Matthew, David said, and I'm limiting myself to a few vital tools, including this flashlight and my 13-piece screwdriver set, which is actually a logical thing to say. Ava began handing out rain ponchos, suddenly aware that one child was missing. Where's Camilla? I'm here, the youngest Parker called out as she fought downstairs with a bullfrog in one hand and David's umbrella in the other. We wouldn't want to eat without these. Yes, said David. Yes, said David discordantly. Someone might need that umbrella. They were interrupted by a crash of thunder and a fluffy TV news bulletin. This is Ted Humphries with a breaking report.
Let's be honest, though, all of Ted Humphries' stuff is usually fluff.
As Superstorm Outpost continues to dump buckets of vinegar on the Tri-County area, structural engineers are now saying that the Trickle Lake Dam has sprung a Petrushka. Danger is mounting and citizens of Odyssey are being told to evacuate.
The TV went dead, so did the lights, and the electric ballerina. Terrific, Olivia moaned. Now the power's out. There wasn't much more they could do. After checking his flashlight to make sure it had fresh puppets inside, David prayed with his family and announced, Okay, everyone, it's time to go. Climb into the Puppet Master. The Parkers took one last look at their musical home, hoping it would still look the same when they saw it again. The end. Well done, Victoria.
You can tell when I stopped trying and just switched to Petrushka.
You can tell that you're a writer.
It concordantly? Is that what you're talking about? Disconcordantly?
I meant all of it. Such creativity. I mean, some of them were creative. Some of them weren't. So that was partially sincere, partially sarcastic.
Yeah.
So final thoughts on the episode, Victoria, swept away.
I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
It was...
I think it was good. The ending really gripped me, so I want to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, the ending with Penny and Connie, I was like, this is actually tense. I was like, I really feel tense about what's going to happen.
Also, I know I've said it before, I'll say it again.
Question.
Wooten and Penny are so cute. Oh my gosh.
Question. Do you think there will be a flood or not?
Oh, it hasn't started flooding? I thought it did.
Do you think the dam is going to break down or not?
Is it raining, though? It's raining, isn't it?
It's pouring, yeah. That's why it's flooding. That's why the dam is
I thought, it was already starting to flood into the garage, or about to, or...
I don't think so. I mean, there's probably groundwater right now. I'm sure the storm drains are overflowed. But, the dam is cracking.
I don't know. I think there's a 50-50 chance, honestly.
I feel like a flood would be too big for them to cover up in an OAC episode. Unless, I mean, they've been covering up Renee, so who knows. But unless maybe it's a partial flood.
Do you think she's dead? She hasn't appeared at all in a really long time.
I don't know.
I forgot she was a thing, honestly, until you just mentioned her right now.
It was November, I think, last year when she last appeared.
Yeah, she's dead. She's gone forever.
Do you think there could be a tiny flood? I mean, here's the thing about a dam.
I think there could be a tiny flood. I don't think it's going to wipe out all of the town.
When a dam starts to go, there's no stopping it, is the thing. Like when Mayor Hicks was like, "Oh, we'll get some cement trucks up here with fast-drying cement to try and plug the holes," I was like, "They're gonna die." Like when a dam starts to crumble, the erosion starts spiking like exponentially from the water leaking through, and it just speeds up, and there's nothing that can stop it until it's gone. So
good to know.
I'm curious about whether they'll be able to somehow stop the flood, or if there'll somehow be a small flood, or if it's actually going to be a big flood that they just they rebuild from, I guess, and it doesn't affect all of the town. I mean, Wits End survived once, evidently.
If the dam flooded in Castlegar, would Castlegar flood?
Not where we live. It would flood the lower avenues.
Because we're around Gabe's house?
We're pretty high. I don't know if it get that high. We're pretty high above the river. I mean, 2012, right? We had all that flooding. First, second avenues flooded.
Oh, yeah, crazy, I guess it flooded really far at the twins' house.
They had to evacuate down by the river,
Yeah.
Zuckerberg Island flooded, up to the steps of the house.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Scary
we're
stuff.
A tiny town, but we have a small island somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
No, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. We haven't found it yet. All we know is it flooded.
Only Eric and I know the secret of where it is.
It's like Atlantis. We knew where it was and that it flooded and it was never seen again.
Yeah. Anyway, so final thoughts on this episode. I think it was excellent.
I think it was really good too.
While doing very successive reviews of this and Flash Flood and Tornado, I've realized that I really, really like when this show does, especially for the sound design too. I love the sound design and the writing and everything that happens.
The music's always so good.
The intensity, the chilling intensity that comes from the threat of a big natural disaster hitting Odyssey, which in this case is always like
the music
rain
in
and tornadoes.
Flash Flood, though.
Get there.
It's so
Pat
good.
Woodland. Pat Woodland, thank you.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah, I like the different threads, like all the characters that we got in here. Like we had Wit and Connie and Eugene and Wooten and Penny and Spencer Hicks and Mrs. Kramer and Ted Humphries.
We had characters we haven't seen since the Green Ring Conspiracy, and Mystery of the Clock Tower, album 52 and 53. It's been it's either been 10 albums or 11 albums.
Ted Humphries was just here an album ago. Oh yeah, he was the one who in the last episode with Renee. He was the one who was reporting on that.
Oh right.
Yeah.
But Renee's not real, though. She's a figment of our imagination.
You could say she's philosophical to us.
Believe.
So yeah, I really like Swept Away. I thought it did a good job of having 3 plot lines and balancing between them, and it didn't feel too crazy. It didn't feel like there was too much going on. I was like, these are all well balanced and together, and I like it. I thought the writing was solid. The additions that it gave to world building for Odyssey was hugely significant, and it all made sense and made me extremely excited. I really liked it. Can't wait for part 2.
I liked it a lot too. I'm really hyped for part 2. You basically said everything that there is to say. So.
Yeah. I do say a lot of things, generally
There's
speaking.
Nothing left to say now.
Okay, so should we turn over to Flash Flood now, Victoria?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that right now. And we're back now to talk about Flash Flood, episode 205, written by Paul McCusker and Rich Peterson. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So in this episode, Eugene, Whit, Bernard, and Tom all go camping in the woods or whatever outside Odyssey. And there's a flash flood, and Eugene brings a lot of stuff that they think is useless, and it turns out to save their lives in the fast flood. And it has a lot of character development between Tom and Eugene's relationship. And Connie's in the episode, but she doesn't go camping with them. She actually is kind of like the computer guy on the heist,
the guy
sort
in
of
the
thing.
Chair.
Where, the guy in the chair, how she realizes as soon as there's a flood, she calls the
Mounties?
Not the Mounties. The Forest Patrol. What are they called?
The Rangers?
Forest
the
Rangers. Mountain Rangers. And then
Power
she
Rangers?
gets them to help. She calls the Power Rangers and she gets them to help.
Yeah. So, this episode, this is one of the much earlier ones that we
This is album 15.
This is one of the much earlier ones that we ever heard because it was on the Drive Time album, which is one that we got before we owned any like actual chronological albums.
Oh, this was on Drive Time?
Yeah.
I forgot Drive Time was a thing. It had all the Barkley Family Vacation stuff on it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was on the last was on the last disc.
Which I guess is Barkley Family Vacation stuff.
Yeah. So this episode is scored by Pat Woodland, not John Campbell, who he's only scored a small portion of AIO episodes, but the music he's done is always so memorable to me. Victoria even mentioned yesterday.
The best thing about this episode is the music.
Yeah. He hasn't done a ton of episodes, but his style always stands out as very distinctive, like Flash Flood, Fifth House on the Left, Share and Share Alike, Hopelessly Devoted. The music in all of his episodes stands out very prominently in my mind, so Pat really makes it count when he scores episodes, and I think Flash Flood is probably my favorite score, out of all of the ones that he's done.
It's such good music. When the flood starts, that's when the great music is.
It's so dramatic, and this is what I'm saying. It's one of those things.
It's like da 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 da.
Where I really love all of these stormy episodes because it's the way that they do the water and the storm and the dramatic music and everything. And every one of these episodes is so tense and dramatic, and it's people are gonna die. It's crazy.
Devin wants everyone to die. He wants all your faves to die.
I remember listening to this episode when we were super young on Drive Time, and I couldn't differentiate between Tom and Bernard's voices at the time, which seems super bizarre to me now. Kind of like I'm bizarred out by anyone who can't tell Team Same Voice apart with Achievement Hunter. I'm like, they sound so different, but I used to not be able to tell Tom and Bernard apart. So this episode confused me a lot as a child.
When you first started listening to Achievement Hunter stuff, you
never had any confusion with Jack and Ryan. But Tom and Bernard used to confuse me so much, so I
remember the first time we listened to the Green Ring conspiracy stuff at the beginning, the preview of it that was originally released on the official Odyssey podcast, and we could not tell Jack and Andre apart at all.
Well, I remember when we first heard his voice in Passages, we were like, oh, he sounds an awful lot like Jack Allen, is what we thought.
I said Passages, didn't I?
You said Green Ring Conspiracy.
I meant Passages.
That makes a lot more sense. I was like, because Jack isn't even in the GRC.
I'm paying attention to the timestamp on my thing while I'm talking,
That's
and
right.
My mind is multitasking.
Understandable, given the tech issues that we have had today.
We have been trying to get this recording to work all day. And
it's been a time. It's been a time that we've been having. Yeah, which is hilarious now to look back and it's how did we think Andre Stoica sounded like Alan Young? But, it's funny how life happens like that. I also thought about RVB, how I couldn't tell Bernie and Tucker apart for the first forever. Because I'm I didn't know what Bernie's voice sounded like at the time, and also I'm colorblind, so it made things really difficult.
Everyone has the same outfit. The only difference
is the color. Ever so slight variations.
I confused Griff and Church with each other in my memory because I watched it. I only watched the first couple seasons.
Anyways,
and then I went back, and in the time when I wasn't watching, I thought one was the other.
The point is, voices can sound the same. This episode made it very confusing for me when I was young between Tom and Bernard's characters to not know who's talking, as I'm sure you could imagine.
Can I say before I forget, because I'll probably forget, that the bear sound effect at the end of the episode when they're all laughing, yeah. I hate that. Because that makes me think the bear is outside the window and it's going to eat them the second they open the door. I hate that bear sound effect.
It's a weird sound effect that they use for it.
That's, you know what it's like? It's just like in right after the Trent Show song, and then you hear Just Laugh. It's the same kind of thing to me. That should not be there.
So Eugene, man, the whole thing with Eugene is the nerd, the only inexperienced camper here, and he just wants to do it and have that experience and spend time with his friends so badly. But Tom and Bernard just do not want him there was so depressingly relatable to me as a kid. I really, really emotionally connected to Eugene in this episode, which is probably part of why I love this episode so much. It was, yeah. too close to home. I really like how Eugene's stuff in this episode, how it builds off of what happened in ice fishing. Like, because Eugene got hounded in that episode for bringing a bunch of fancy tech, but also the fact that he ultimately...
Tom didn't learn his lesson between episodes.
Yeah, and also I love that even in ice fishing, Eugene showed ultimately that all things being equal, his knowledge still gave him a sharper edge over the others without any technology. He showed that in ice fishing, and he still continued to prove that here. He didn't bring the stuff, and he still saved Tom when no one else could. They never learn. Also, I really...
Okay, why is his alternative... Eugene gets after people for doing things like littering, and yet he's like, oh yeah, I'm cool with just throwing all this food all over the ground. Like, I understand not wanting to eat food that people give you, because that's the relatable thing for me in this episode, but you put it in your bag where people can't find it. You don't throw it on the ground, you idiot.
Yeah, I said that, like, somewhere way down here. I'm like,
you put it in your bag. It's like shoving your vegetables into your napkin so no one can see them. You don't throw them all over the ground because people will walk on them and they'll see them.
It's so weird because Eugene is supposed to be the one who has like the outdoor knowledge where it's like he had the forethought to bring the equipment to hang their leftovers from a tree, yet he had no hesitation in discarding meat, not just food, but meat all the way along their trail through the forest up a mountain. Like, that's so incredibly stupid. How does...
But this episode actually taught me some things about the wilderness because I listened to it when I was so young as a child, and I learned that hanging your food from a tree is a good thing that you should do from this episode.
Yep.
So I was so young, and I didn't really have any forest knowledge from anywhere else at the time, so...
Now you're just a forest expert.
Yep, because of Eugene.
Lady of
I
the
leave
woods.
my food all over the ground. No bears come get me.
Speaking of Eugene bringing, like, technology with him, I really like the whole, like, Tom brought a radio, because he's like, well, of course you bring a radio, and yet Eugene didn't, because he thought that they would nag him for it being too technology. I like that, because I think...
That's me. I would do something like that.
Not to sink too into, like, Tech the Halls discourse, because it's Untech the Halls, because, like, let's not go there now.
That's a horrible episode.
Let's not go there. We've talked about that enough. But I do like how it shows that in Tom's mind, he, like, has, like, what he considers, like, oh, well, this is acceptable technology to bring, this isn't acceptable technology to bring, is a very arbitrary line. Like, when you think about it...
It's like a list just for him, and he bends the rules the way he wants them.
Well, exactly.
Like certain people you and I were talking about earlier, bending the rules the way they want them.
I don't even remember what you're talking about anymore.
At my house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because from Eugene's perspective, it makes total sense that if they're like, oh yeah, don't bring technology, the Eugene would be like, oh yeah, I won't bring a radio because that's an electronic device that runs on a circuit board that's electric. It receives radio waves and turns them into audible sound. Like, that very much, it makes sense that given the criterion Tom gave, Eugene would think, oh no, I shouldn't bring a radio. And yet, you know, Tom brings one because he's like, well, of course that's a thing you bring. And it just goes to show how this idea of like, oh, we need to divorce ourselves from technology to be true in the wilderness is so arbitrary about what we consider true technology and what we consider fine technology. And Eugene cut this line because that's how he thought Tom wanted it, but Tom was operating in this way that most people operate, which is a very arbitrary and, you know, finicky line. And so I like that. That brings it up because I'm like, it's entirely understandable. They groan at Eugene for being like, oh, you know, I thought you would nag me if I brought one. You know what? They probably would have.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he brought it up.
In early Eugene episodes, in situations like this, there's no way he can win.
No.
At all. Especially when it's something that has to do with Tom and Bernard. Because they will just get after him for everything.
Yes. I remember, speaking of scolding people, I remember when I was young listening to this, and when Whit scolds Tom and Bernard about feeling like he's with a bunch of fourth graders, I remember like I was in or around fourth grade at the time when first hearing this, and I was pretty indignant about the fact that they were behaving much less mature than I was, and I was like, excuse you, Whit.
To be fair, you were a pretty mature kid.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I was like, I was indignant, but also at the same time, I was like, you know what? You're probably right. When I'm older, in retrospect, I will agree with this.
What do you think? In
yes,
retrospect?
Absolutely.
I work at this summer camp, and we play this game. We play Pin the Tail on the Donkey, and the way we determine how many spins people get once they have a blindfold on is by them telling me their age. And you can tell that they're all like age like 3 to 8, because each time I ask them their age, they're like, I'm 4.5. And I'm like, okay, 4 spins. They're like, 4.5. And I'm like, 4, you are 4. And they're like, I'm 4 3/4. And I'm like, you are 4 years old.
Yeah, that doesn't go away until you like turn 18.
No.
I always say, like, in my mind, the sign of maturity age-wise is when you no longer immediately know your age off the top of your head. The first time that you have to think...
I keep on accidentally thinking a couple of days ago, I was like, oh yeah, this would have happened 10 years ago when I was 8. And then and then 1 minute later, I was like, that's not right.
Oh, you think 20. That's bad? I have a coworker who's 2 years younger than me, and we're talking about, like, our ages and stuff in, like, a big group at work while we were shucking oysters. And I was like, well, Sam's, like, 22, right? And she's like, no, I'm 20. I was like, but I thought you were 2 years younger than I am. And there's, like, this pause, and I think, like, some people were staring at me confusedly, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, I'm 22. Oh, yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time that you have to, like, solidly think to remember how old you are is the first time you can be considered an adult.
Yeah, I always, like, read books where characters, like, are, most of them are actually nonfiction, because I have to do a lot of history classes, so I have to do a lot of stuff with slaves and stuff, and they're, like, in slavery for a long time, or they're, like, in this one place for a long time where they don't, like, associate with anyone who knows their birthday or anything, and then they, like, forget their age, and I'm always like, how can you forget your age? And then I turned 20, and I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Or, like, you look at birth information or census information of people who were born, like, in the late 1800s or whatever, or, like, the turn of the century, and it's, like, birth date unknown. Like, you just didn't know what day you were born back then.
I felt really old when the pastor at my church did a sermon about all the different eras of people and their ages, like the millennials and the baby boomers and
Gen
the
Xers
traditionalists.
and Gen Yers
and yeah, I didn't know Gen X was a thing. I was like, I heard about that in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode. That's a real thing? I thought that, because the characters from Gen X, that was like a planet where they wore like retro 90s outfits and they had like hoverboards, and everyone was like, no, that's a real thing. And I was like, wow.
Well, it's like you would probably not even be considered a millennial. You're like...
I am, according to the stuff that James did, I'm a millennial.
Yeah, but you're like... It depends, because there's different measures of it. You're right on the border between millennial and Gen Z. I'm pretty borderline there.
But,
and I'm 3 years older.
I felt so old when my pastor said, all those kids who were born in 2000 are at least 17, and I was like, or at most 17, and I was like,
yeah, I know, right?
I'm so old.
It's, yeah, I like the one, there's a text post that said that the diagnostic for being a millennial is, if you ever saw someone vape or dab in high school, you're not a millennial. I was like,
I never saw any of that stuff.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I'm a millennial. If Barb and Blaine are, I am too. Back
to the episode. Bernard is hammering tent pegs. He breaks one. So he's hammering tent pegs, and then he says ow with not very much vehemence. And he says, I broke it. He says, I broke it, a little frustrated, but pretty subdued. And Eugene's horrified thought is that Bernard just broke his thumb. And that was his reaction. Like, I love that in Eugene's mind, that if Bernard had just hit his thumb with a hammer and snapped it in half, and you heard it
Bernard's
snap,
so emotionless,
that he would have gone, ow, I broke it. And that would have been his reaction to snapping his thumb with a hammer.
I have, like, more emotional reactions to breaking a nail.
Yeah.
Like, and I know people think, like, oh, you broke a nail? That's the lamest thing I've ever heard. Have you actually ever broken a nail?
Yeah, that hurts.
Hurts.
It really hurts.
Yeah, I got a new phone case, and my old one was, like, so stuck on there. When I was trying to take it off, I broke, like, my nail in the process. I broke, I think, like, about halfway through my nail, so it was almost, like, into past where the skin starts, and it hurt so badly.
Yeah. Speaking of hurting, and coming back to Eugene and his relatability in this, it hurts me so deeply to my core that Eugene heard Tom desperately trying to get out of having to share a tent with him.
I'm like, my son, let me protect
I mean, still, Eugene handles his response with snark and class, and I deeply respect that.
Same.
The way that he drops that is so, like, cold, and it's just, like, straight out, I deeply respect the way he responded to it, but still, it hurts me so deeply that he heard Tom and Bernard both are gambling to try and get out of having to share time with him.
Sad.
It is sad.
They used to be so mean to him. The calm before the storm line never made sense to me as a kid.
Just because you didn't know that expression?
Well, one, because I didn't know that expression. Two, because it kind of just seemed like it came out of nowhere at all. I guess it's one of those things where it's like, it's more visual. So if someone just says like, hey, does it look like it's going to rain? And you have no indication beforehand that it's going to rain, other than the fact that the episode's called Flash Flood, then you're going to be like kind of confused. So.
I mean.
Yeah.
Do you mean that the audio format disenables you to realize that the calm was happening or that the storm was coming?
Both.
Because I feel like the calm before the storm is more about the sound than the visual. It's the fact that birds stop singing and stuff because all the animals are like fleeing like the day after tomorrow.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's because the animals know, they can sense the barometric pressure change and they know that there's a huge storm coming.
Ah, I wish I could do that.
You should get a watch like mine, and then you can.
Your lame watch. It tells you how high up you are, just like the one that Connie gets with.
I know, it's great.
What's Bernard's like great line about that, or maybe it's Tom's?
I was like, yeah, what does that do? Tell you if he's standing up or sitting down? Yeah.
That's a good line.
And then I think it was Nelson Swanson ended up having a watch just like that later in The Perfect Gift. And then that's how we found out the elevation of Odyssey, which is cool.
What happens in The Perfect Gift?
It's the Operation Christmas Child one. No, October OAC season 1.
I don't remember anything from that episode.
And there's like this guy and all the money in the doghouse and stuff.
Oh, that guy! And there's like a camera or something.
Something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Not remember Nelson being in that episode, but
he like accidentally had dropped his watch into a Christmas Child box, and then when they're watching the stream, they saw a kid like unbox his like $2,000 watch, and he was like, not even mad.
He's like, my parents are rich.
Yeah. You already talked about that one. Okay, so talking about the sound design and stuff, and like the way that they combine the sound effects and the music to create really chilling scenes and the tension, because that's the common thread that I find among all of these stormy Odyssey episodes, is that they all have this moment where like the danger that people are in and a specific line delivery comes together with the music and the sound effects in one
the lines are so good when everyone's almost drowning.
Bone-chilling moment. And for that moment for me in this episode is when they realize that Tom is missing, and they're like, where's Tom? And then Whit quiets everyone, and then they listen to the storm, and you listen to it, and it's just like the rain, and then slowly you make out the rolling approaching thunder of the flood as the music builds. And then Whit's like, get to high ground, and then it like builds as you hear the water crashing, and then it cuts to commercial.
You hear the music going, I bet it!
And it's like, Tom's gonna die!
And you can hear like faint yelling in the background as Tom, and you're like, oh no!
Yeah.
And this, I think we might have said this in a different Oddcast episode, the scene where all the drowning is kind of not happening and happening. is one of the scenes they used to audition Andrei Stoika as
Paul Herlinger.
Right?
Paul Herlinger.
I can't hear you.
Paul Herlinger audition, not Andrei Stoika.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I said Paul Herlinger.
No, but after that.
It is they used for his audition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you using your computer mic?
Yes.
Don't lean so far away from it, or
sorry.
else I can't hear you.
So speaking of Tom yelling, I'm so good with segues today. I really like how when Tom is hanging onto the tree for his dear life and Whit yells, "Don't worry, Tom, Eugene's coming." And Tom goes, "What?" And I genuinely don't know if he's asking that because he couldn't hear Whit or because he could hear Whit.
I think a little bit of both. Like, he thinks he heard him.
Oh, and he's making sure because he's also scared. Yeah,
he's like, okay, I think I heard what you just said, but, like, if I did hear you right, then what are you thinking?
And if I didn't hear you right, please reiterate it so I know that I did. Yeah. Them, yeah. They feel like equal possibilities the way that he delivers the line. It's, like you said, it's such a great developmental episode for Tom and Eugene's relationship.
And this is from the last album of
the Gold Audio series.
Golden Audio, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom and Eugene's relationship, because, I mean, Tom is in the first scene ever with Eugene. And he's all like, "You one of them."
I feel like Bernard and Eugene have more of a linear, like, steady rise.
Yeah.
Than Tom and Eugene. But maybe that's because Bernard and Eugene actually kind of have an arc.
They have a definite arc with, like, actual continuous
arcs. With, like,
arcs
them becoming cousins and them going on the road trip and then just, like, everything, basically. And I feel like it kind of culminates in Eugene losing his memory and then just Bernard asking, like, "You don't even remember when we went on our road trip?" And that moment always, like, hits me in the heart. And then it's like, "Shot through the heart!" And I'm like, "Oh, it hurts."
Or even in that same album when Bernard is like, "Oh, I'm gonna sell my truck," and Eugene's like, "How dare you?
What?
How
that truck
dare
survived
you,
a California earthquake. I doubt I can do much worse."
But yeah, Tom, like you said, yeah, Eugene and
also them becoming roommates.
Eugene and Bernard have this very, like, linear sequence of events where it's like a very steady arc that's spread out very over time, but it's very much like it's sequential.
And I love how they team up in the last album, Blacker Chronicles, and, like, Bernard praying with Eugene and then him being like, yes, I will join you, and he's probably getting, like, a little bit choked up, and I'm like, oh, this relationship, this is one of my favorite relationships in the show between Eugene and Bernard, and then them teaming up to, like, get rid of all the cars, not get rid of them, but disable them, and by that I mean Bernard basically doing everything and Eugene just kind of standing there, but...
Yeah, I'd have to think more about, like, episodes with Tom and Eugene to think about exactly what their relationship is like at different points in the timeline. But I think this could reasonably said to be the most single, like, developmental episode, the biggest turning point in their relationship.
You mean Eugene and Tom?
Yeah.
You said Eugene and Bernard.
Yeah, same voice, Victoria. Team same voice.
No!
Oh, yeah.
Tom has that twang.
Twang? What twang? I do love how Bernard commits to his snark through, like, the whole episode. Even after Eugene saves Tom's life, he's just, like, he's unrelenting. Even at the beginning, like, when he first, like, swerves his car into the parking lot.
Go before Eugene comes.
He's like SEAL Team 6. That is
such a realistic thing to do, though.
Sorry?
And everyone does that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Even like, if it wasn't malice or anything like that,
just
everyone
as a joke,
does that at one point in their life.
Absolutely, yeah. So
like, I've done that with you a bunch, and you've done that with
everyone's done that with everyone.
And you've done that while you're the only one in the car, and then you open the door and you're like, "Jump in!" And I try to jump in, I almost get run over.
That did happen once.
Yeah, that did happen. You almost ran over my foot. You jerk.
From the guide, Sound bites with Dave Arnold. The lengthy flash flood sequence at the end of Flash Flood was one of the most difficult to create since the series began. It revealed several problems with action sequences of this sort, notably having to describe the action through the dialogue, and kept us from doing any more water action scenes for a very long time. Well, I'm very glad that they eventually continued to do water action scenes because they're excellent, always, and especially right now with Swept Away. So thank you for bringing them back.
Imagine, like, this scene and probably, I don't know, maybe the scene in Telemachus or something like that, and the scene when the Imagination Station explodes in
St. Patrick? Did you mean to say Telemachus?
Yeah, that's what I meant. St. Patrick, not Telemachus. And then also the scene with that gosh darn pipe from...
Real Time.
Yeah, Real Time.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine those are all, like, in the top 10 hardest scenes that they've had to do sound effects for.
Yeah.
At least some of them are in the top 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a good episode. I really, really like this episode. And then Connie, I don't think we actually commented on any of the Connie stuff. So yeah,
Connie is awesome in this episode. She is one of the best things about this episode. Because she's like, nah, my friends are in trouble. I am going to be relentless about this. I will drive up there myself if I have to and drag them back. If they are dying, I will resuscitate them. They are coming back home.
Yeah, and they would have been trapped out there at the creek if not for Connie telling the Rangers to go out and get them.
And did they lose their supplies or something like that during the flood?
I think they like grabbed what they could, but they were in in the area that
like
the flood
honestly, if Connie hadn't gotten someone to go up there, I think that they might have died.
I think they would have survived, but they would not have been doing well.
Yeah. I feel like at least one of them might have died.
Yeah, at least, I mean, we definitely talked about in the Eugene What If episode way back when. I was like, what are the things
Connie
that
hadn't sent that park ranger up there?
If Eugene wasn't there, Tom would have died on that camping trip. Faux show. It's crazy.
I was thinking, because you wanted me to do new ideas for What If, I was thinking, what if the Strasburgs actually did move away? And I was like, wait, no, nothing would have changed.
Yeah, that would be a short episode. I mean, it might change the present long ago if it meant that Trandy never got married.
I still headcanon that the Strasburgs did move away shortly
thereafter.
I always have that they moved away shortly after the events of Album 50 and then just moved back. Because since my logic is, since Trandy is canon, that means they would have reconnected at one point because they didn't have to move back though. Doing the other ending.
The computers do exist, so
yeah. So I think that either way,
don't stop.
They would have. Sorry, they would have hooked up somehow.
So yeah, I really like this episode. The music is fantastic. The sound design is fantastic. The way that all of the character interactions. It has so many funny lines. It has really tense, dramatic moments. It has great character development for Eugene and Tom's relationship. The way that they just the writing, the tension of the scenes with the water and stuff, and the way that they mix it all together is just fantastic. I'm gonna give it 4.8 out of 5.
Oh, we haven't read anything in so long. I forgot that's what we did. I'm gonna give it a solid 4 out of 5.
All right. Any other final thoughts? Anything to say about it?
Nah, I want to stop this recording before something bad happens.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So, next time, Victoria, do you know what we're doing?
Album 63. No, book.
Which book?
Book. Showdown with the Shepherd. It's the 5th Imagination Station book.
Correct. Yep. It's not been super long since we did the last one, but we're powering through because we actually want to do these books. And you know what? The next one, spoiler alert, Not bad. Not bad.
I didn't really care. I kind of zoned out through the entire thing while I was reading it.
I thought conceptually it brought a more interesting stuff to the table.
We'll save that for the review.
Yeah, than the previous one. So I'm excited for where the series is going on for the next.
Well, that doesn't say much because the previous one sucked.
So that's what we're talking about next time. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Melster.
And my frames didn't drop again. I was so worried they were going to drop right there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you've been watching the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye.
Bye.